shall I address these questions?
Okay. Okay. Today, namaskar and good evening, everybody. So, welcome all of you. It's again another interaction session meant for SSB students, and it is open for all too. Well, we had a very good session yesterday on ethics and applied ethics. Today, we are having an interaction session on Western philosophy. Well, students, please, you post your questions in the chat box. It doesn't matter whether you are having a question on Kant or Hume or Leibniz or Bacon. It doesn't matter. We'll address all the questions, but don't take in a piecemeal. This you'll have to start with Bacon. No, you have any question you post. Okay, we'll try to address. But since no questions are being asked till now, well, we'll start with something like this. You see, yes, I see some questions. Yes, Sachin Babu, what is inductive method of Bacon? Okay, very good. So let's continue. So Sachin Babu, he has asked a very genuine question. What is the inductive method? Normally, we talk of inductive method in inductive logic, but Bacon's, am I audible? Am I audible?
Very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. So Bacon's inductive method is somewhat different. How it is, you see, in Bacon, the prime aim of induction was to establish what is called as a form. We wanted to establish what is called as a form. But when we talk of a form, we sometimes confuse, most of the people may confuse, is this form the same form that Plato was talking of? No. So Bacon's form was not that. And some may be asking, is it like Aristotle's universal? No, it is not again Aristotle's universal. Now, since Bacon was all interested in establishing scientific laws, so is this form a sort of scientific generalization or a scientific law? No, that's also not true. So what is this form that Bacon wanted to arrive at through his inductive method? Now you see, form is somehow, we say it is somehow intermediate to the universals of Aristotle and the general scientific laws that we have in science. It somehow hangs in between these two, this form. Now, how does this inductive method goes on? Now, in order to understand the inductive method of Bacon, we should think of a bit of idea. Anybody who has an idea of, say, the Mill's experimental methods would understand this method very nicely. So whenever we are trying to go with induction, normally what we do, we collect certain instances. Even in induction, as traditionally we do it. So Bacon was also, in his method, tried to collect instances to establish a form. So what sort of instances? So all these instances, a positive set of instances that would suggest, that would help him to arrive at what is called as a form. I'll tell you what is this form is again. Okay, so the first step is collection of instances, positive instances, in order to arrive at a form. Now this may be compared with the method of agreement that we find in Mill's experimental methods. Okay, now we have a set of positive instances where we need to think of what would be the appropriate negative instances to this set of positive instances. So accordingly, we need to collect a set of negative instances. Okay, now By taking the positive instances that we got, comparing those positive instances with the negative instances, we have to make a comparative table. So he makes a table of comparison, which is more like the joint method of agreement and difference that we find in Mill's experimental method. So with something like this, you see, now in this table of comparison, now he tries to see a sort of rough sketch is got. What is that form? But he is not satisfied with that also. So like we see in Mill's experimental method, the method of concomitant variation. So where you see one quantitative variation, a quantitative variation in one, say, circumstance is leading to a quantitative variation in another circumstance. So what he is doing is, whatever instances that he is having in the table of comparison. So what he is doing is varying the instances, okay, under different circumstances. So what he is doing is he is taking a sort of quantitative variation by taking this table of comparison. What specifically he has nearly reached at a sort of form, but he is not happy with it. But he is trying to make a quantitative variation in the cause, okay, to reach a quantitative variation in the effect. So now it is something like this. Suppose, to understand this, let me take an example. Suppose heat. What are the instances of heat? Say, if you have switched on a bulb, if you touch the bulb, we feel hotness in it. Suppose there is a candle flame, we touch it, we'll feel the hotness in it. If the burner is burning, if you touch it, we'll feel the heat. Now, but what is that form that Bacon is trying to arrive at? Okay, now suppose say it is something like this. What sort of instance will have heat as it is? That means it cannot be dissociated. Suppose you have a candle flame, once I lit off the candle, there is no more heat in the candle. Okay, once the bulb is switched off, and if I touch the bulb, there would be no heat sensation. Okay, now if I put off the burner, the gas burner, if I touch that, say after some time, there is no more heat in it. But if you take sun, so what we find is heat is always there in sun. Heat is always there in sun. Okay, so heat and sun cannot be dissociated. So this is the form that Bacon wanted to arrive at. So its argument is something like this. So heat is due to P or Q or R or S. Okay, so heat is due to P or Q or R or S. Then it comes to a point that, say, it is not due to, say, heat and R are not coexisting at various stances. Similarly, heat and say PQRS I have taken. So Q is not coexisting with heat all time. So all others except P. If I take P as the sun, so whatever may be the instance of time. So we cannot dissociate hotness or heat from sun. So that is the form that Bacon wanted to arrive at. Okay, so this is the method that Bacon follows, and when he gets sun is a form of heat, okay, then that instance is called as the crucial instance in the inductive method. This is one. This is the methodology, inductive methodology in Bacon. And one more point in inductive method of Bacon is, you see, normally when you talk of induction, there is always a risk of refuting the conclusion of induction in the light of one negative instance. So inductive, that's why we say inductive conclusion is always at a risk, because one negative instance is sufficient to refute the generalization. But this is not the case with Bacon. The form that Bacon is talking of is always open-ended. It is always open-ended means, if at all there is a negative instance that comes to our purview, that negative instance can be accommodated in the generalization or in the form to arrive at a new form. Suppose you have a new form, if another negative instance comes across us, that this negative instance can also be incorporated in this new axiom or the new form to give rise to another form. So there is never a case where a negative instance is denying the form. Rather, the form will take adjustments with time. Every time a negative instance is got against the form. So the negative instances in ordinary induction that we say that refutes the generalization, but here the negative instances, they are incorporated into the form to give rise to new form. And this is how Bacon's inductive method, I think, is a much more scientific one, because he also talks of, in the methodology he talks of, there is always a shift from one axiom to another axiom, or from one law to another law, because there is always a scope for incorporation of the negative instances into the form or into the axiom. So this is how Bacon's inductive method can be taken, and we also can see how it is totally different from the inductive method that we see in in the ordinary induction that we all know, induction that we are acquainted with. So this is how Bacon's method is totally different. Now we have another question. I think it is clear, Sachin Babu. Now we have another question by Sumit Jonti. Yes, I remember Sumit Jonti. He had a very beautiful question in the last session on logic. Well, now Sumit Jonti, theory of idolas. So what are idolas? Idolas are nothing but the illusions. They are the hallucinations. Okay, they are the errors. They are the mistakes. They are the superimpositions. Something of a sort of false knowledge. Okay, Sumit, please put on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, once I complete. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
No, sir. Like,
okay, once
I just want
the recording is going on, that will be interrupted. Okay. So once I get through, if you have subsequent questions to ask, you are welcome. So what I said, so idolas are a sort of illusions. They are, you can say, they constitute a sort of mistakes. They are a sort of false knowledge. They are errors. Okay. Bacon, you see, he was much concerned about establishing scientific laws, okay, based on interrogating nature. By questioning nature, he wanted to arrive at certain generalizations, certain forms, as I said you. He wanted to arrive at certain forms. But Bacon finds that mind has certain predispositions, okay, a prior knowledge, a prior setup, and somehow they distort true understanding, they distort somehow a true knowledge. So he wants that the mind should be cleared of all sort of false knowledge, all sort of errors, all sort of mistakes, okay, so that we can have a basis for right knowledge. So he's talking of, basically, Bacon is talking of 4 idolas. One is called as idola tribus. Idola tribus means the past dispositions, the memories, the wrong ideas that we have in our mind. And what we do in idola tribus, what happens is, when we try to explain something in terms of the final causes or the ends or the purposes that we have in our mind. Suppose I believe in X. Suppose I have a great belief in X and I want to somehow establish X. So that is my motto, that is my purpose. So with that preconception that I have got to establish X, I have to prove X, so I carry on the activities ignoring all true facts. So there comes the problem. So idola tribus is a problem, it's an error when we try to judge facts or events in terms of the final causes or the end or the purpose that we have in mind. Because we have a certain purpose, we want to justify the purpose. So in spite of the true facts that are before us, we try to interpret them as if they would solve our purpose or our end. So that's how it's a idola. It's a idola tribus is it's an error. It's an illusion in knowledge, and it blocks true knowledge. Then we can come to idola speakers, or it is idola of a person. So idola of a person means it is an idola that is totally linked with the person. How is it? Suppose somebody has a jaundice. Okay, now some idol speakers is also sometimes said as idol of the cave. Idol of the cave means a man, suppose he has a certain understanding and he is confined to his own understanding. He doesn't want to come out of his cave. Okay, so if I think, well, I know something, I should verify it with others to find out whether what I think, what pattern that I have carried in my mind, whether that it fits to the society or the greatest interest of the people. But I'm not doing that. If I'm not doing that, if I'm simply confined to my own ideology, to my own thinking, within my own cave, within my own understanding, okay, so that is idol speakers. Because what happens is, suppose if I have a jaundice and I see everything yellow, I'm not checking with anybody, I'm simply saying, oh, everything around in this room is yellow. So how can I know I have a jaundice dye? If somebody is there to tell me, well, you have a jaundice or something, or some problem in you, but I'm not going to accept. So there comes the problem, idol speakers. That means I confine myself to my own limited knowledge and I don't interact with others and I don't come out of my den. I don't come out of my own boundaries to see what is happening outside. So that there comes the problem of idol speakers. Then we come idol fori. Idol fori means forum. Forum, or it is something like idol of the marketplace. Sometimes it is said. Idol fori means, say, what happens here when we wrongly associate a certain word or name with a thing. There is a wrong association. We have a certain name or we have a certain say word and we wrongly associate that word or name with a thing. Suppose, let us begin with something like this. We normally say sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It's there we have a problem. There we commit the fallacy. There we have idol fori. Why I say this? Because we normally say, as I said, we normally say sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But we should know, a scientific man knows that sun never moves. Sun is always static. Sun never moves. It is only because the earth rotates on its axis from west to east. Since the earth rotates on its axis from west to east, it appears as if sun is moving from east to west. So suppose someday if earth starts moving from east to west, then it will appear as if sun is moving from west to east. So, but in real sense, sun is never moving. Sun is always static. But what we say that the sun is moving from east to west. So this is idol fori. This is idol fori. And similarly, another example we can take. We say rails, the parallel rails. Okay, this we say they merge at a distance. But whether the parallel rails, whether they can merge, they can never merge. But we say, oh, the rails are merging at a distance. Or we say that the sea and the sky, they meet at the horizon. Whether they meet, they never meet. So there comes the fallacy of idol fori. Then we have idol theory, where, and it is said, idol theory is a philosopher's illusion. So where the fallacy lies in idol theory, the fallacy lies in the wrong ways of demonstration. We try to demonstrate something, but that some certain wrong things are demonstrated, or something is demonstrated in a wrong way, in an erroneous manner. So that's how we can take the idols. Well, this is all about idols. Well, we have a question on idealism and realism. What is idealism and realism? Different kinds of realism. Let us move to Pramod Kumar.
Sir, can I ask you one question?
Yes, carry on.
Thank you. Like towards the beginning, you mentioned that Francis Bacon wants to have a clear cut. Ground for clear cut ground for establishing the scientific knowledge, and for this reason, he has given this four ideals. Four theory of idols.
He has given these idols, means these idols have to be, mind has to be cleared of these idols. Mind has to be cleared of these idols. One has to be free from this in order to have a free thinking. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir, my question is something like this, Francis Bacon holds that we generally have this kind of like these four kind of dispositions in our mind. But you see, like whenever we try to like come out of these four idols, like we somehow like fall into another like framework. No, I mean, like so, like I mean, we have like the like according to Francis Bacon, we have like a framework of these four idols, which prevents us to like have the proper knowledge. But in order to like come out of these four dispositions, we somehow like we somehow get trapped into another kind of framework. No, so like what I mean to say is like I mean, can we really come out of this framework of uh, uh,
I
uh,
got you. Sumit Janti, I got you. So
yeah, thank you.
Bacon was talking of these four idols, which we need to get our mind totally cleared up. And the problem that Janti has in mind that
Yeah,
is there a possibility of other illusions? Well, we cannot guarantee that would not be illusions of other sort. What Bacon was hitting at is he made a classification of these idols. These are the areas where we may fall into problems. Suppose, as you said, okay, no knowledge is final. No knowledge is I say it's a final thing, a final word on the day. No, it is all changing. So, as you said, even though we are conscious of these four idols, but if we come across a new type of illusion, a new type of fallacy, a new type of error in our reasoning, in our understanding, so accordingly, we need to deal with that illusion. We need to clear off the mind from those past dispositions. Okay, our tendencies. Okay, our attachments. Okay, so that we can have a neutral state. So when Bacon is saying about that, he has always a scope in his mind, always a thought in his mind. Whatever obstacles that come in the path of discovering the right knowledge, all sort of obstacles need to be cleared up. If at all, apart from the idols that Bacon was talking of, if we come across a new set of idols, they need to be clear, and these are not the final idols. Okay, I just see, because Bacon too is saying that whenever in his inductive method, as I said towards the last, even a negative instance that we come across, okay, that need to be taken care of, and accordingly we need to change things. So idols, objections, problems, barricades, hindrances, okay, illusions, whatever sort they may be, they need to be cleared off in order to pave a path for right knowledge, true understanding of nature. Thank you, John.
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, Pramod sir, what is idealism and realism and different types of reality? Pramod sir.
Yes. I shall address four questions altogether, because these four questions are related to each other. The question is, what is the distinction between idealism and realism, and what are the different types of realism? The second question is, what is how synthetic applied knowledge is possible? The third question is the distinction between matter of facts and relation of ideas. And the fourth question is Locke's theory of knowledge. These four questions are very much related to each other. So, from these four questions, we can say that there are two possibilities for human epistemology, that there is an outside world and there is an inner world. So, one claim is that what I see, what I perceive, is real or not? This is the question. Suppose I see a tree, whether that tree is a real tree or not. This is a philosophical question. This is not a question of a common man. A common man takes the tree as a tree. Suppose I saw my father, I don't ask the question whether he is my real father or not. I don't ask my wife that whether you are a real wife or not. So these are in common sense, all these are real. We can't dare to say that they are unreal. Okay, so realism is a common sense view, that is called naive realism. According to that naive realism, a common sense view of realism, whatever we perceive, that is real. and it is real as it is. As I perceive, the object is exactly that. There is no philosophy at all. There is nothing to interpret. This is naive realism or common sense view of realism. The other possibility is that when we try to philosophize about our perception, we ask the question, is it the object or the quality that I am perceiving? So this question comes to our mind if we think it deeply. Therefore, in Jaina system, in Naya system also, there is a distinction between nirvikalpa and sabvikalpa. That means in the first stage of perception, actually I perceive nothing, I perceive something. That means it is indeterminate, it is nirvikalpa. There is no guna, this is nirguna. But after that, when I become alert, my mind starts interpreting my perception. I recognize my memory, such qualities that I have perceived in the past. Then I recognize, oh, this is that tree, this is that pen, this is my son, this is my father. Then only we give a name to it from our past memory. But in the first stage of our perception, actually we perceive nothing. From this it is proved that what we really perceive is not the object but the qualities. What is the position here? In both the cases, be it object or its qualities, object or qualities, they exist outside our minds. That is realism. If something is claimed to exist outside our perception as the object of perception which exists outside our minds, that is realism. That is of two types. Naive realism means the object is object. Representative realism says the object is nothing but the qualities. This is the difference between naive realism and representative realism, or this is the answer of what are the basic types of realism. But what is idealism? Idealists say also man wonders. Man starts asking the question. When I am closing my eye, I also see that sea beach. I also see the coconut tree. So what is that I see in my mind when I am closing my eye sense organ? So when the doors of perception are closed, how I see the same object in my mind? Here the question comes, the idealism, that it is only mind which is the only source of knowledge. So my ideas are only real and the object is illusory. The object is not real. This is nothing but the idea that exists in my mind. Otherwise, it cannot come when I close my eye. Therefore, Berkeley said, to be is to be perceived. To be is to be perceived. That means if we claim the existence of something, then that must be perceived. That means what is not perceived, that does not exist. Realists will claim just the opposite. To perceive is to be. That means if you have to perceive something, then that must exist really outside your mind. To be is to be perceived. This is the position of idealism. To perceive is to be. This is the position of realism. So these are different types of a philosophy, different types of a philosophical thinking, different types of a philosophical interpretation, and these two types are so important. Many philosophical systems have been they are philosophical systems. um, 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 Almost all philosophical systems, they interpret these two possibilities. The second is synthetic a priori, exactly the same question. Synthetic a priori. Synthetic belongs to the realism, a priori belongs to idealism. So what is that? So if we similarly Hume's matter of fact and the relation of ideas. Matter of facts belongs to realism. Relation of ideas belongs to idealism. So in every philosophical systems, these two possibilities are discussed in different names and different banners, different philosophical interpretations. But these issues are very much important even in Plato, in Aristotle, in Descartes' philosophy, in every philosophy, philosophical system, these two fundamental questions are addressed. Immanuel Kant's synthetic a priori knowledge, how synthetic a priori knowledge is possible. So, because there is a dualism of the outside world and the inner world, the object and the perception of the object, Immanuel Kant tried to reconcile these two claims, whether sense experience is the source of knowledge, whether there are objects outside our mind, is it real, is it the correct view, or the other view, the idealist view, that no, only ideas are real, mind is responsible for knowledge. So these two claims are reconciled in Immanuel Kant. So Immanuel Kant is making a distinction between two types of proposition, like analytic and synthetic, and that is the other is a priori and a posteriori. Analytic statement is one in which the subject predicate are identical, where there is no new information, the predicate repeats the subject. A is a type of analytic proposition. Synthetic proposition is that the predicate gives a new information about the subject, grass is green. So analytic proposition is about idealism, synthetic proposition is about realism. Similarly, a priori and a posteriori, a posteriori statements, that is about truth and the determination of truth. How can you know the truth of a proposition? The analytic synthetic is about meaning distinction on meaning. A priori and a posteriori, that distinction is about truth. How can you know the truth of a proposition or a statement? A priori statement is that the truth of a statement is known independent of experience. That means realism is real world is not necessary to determine the truth of a proposition. It is a priori. A priori means independent of experience. Whatever if the truth of a statement is known independent of our experience, that means free from realism. If we can know the truth of a statement by only analysis, conceptual analysis, conceptual understanding, then that is a priori. Then what is a posteriori? Without experience, we cannot know the truth of a proposition. So, out of this analysis, what can be the best pairs? The best pair is analytic propositions are a priori, synthetic propositions are a posteriori. But Immanuel Kant is saying synthetic propositions can also be a priori. This is Kantian revolution. He made a revolution by saying this, that synthetic and a priori, these two combinations are possible. How? Immanuel Kant claims no relation of ideas is possible if the objects of ideas are not derived from, acquired from the empirical world. That means experience is the first entry, first door of epistemology. Without experience, without the empirical world, without realism, no idealism is possible. So from the real world, we collect the sense data, we experience the sense data, but that sense data cannot be perceived without the a priori percepts like space and time. So in every possible perception, though it is objective, though it is synthetic, though it is empirical, we need some a priori conditions, that is space and time. That means space and time are a priori conditions which are responsible for any perception, but these two are not perceived. These two are not perceived, therefore it is a priori. But without these, we can't perceive anything. So, a priori elements are very much required for empirical experience. So this is a priori, and when that is applied to the empirical world, that is synthetic. So synthetic a priori knowledge is possible in theory. So this is the theory. Then he is giving many examples that a synthetic a priori knowledge is possible in mathematics, synthetic a priori knowledge is possible in physics, synthetic a priori knowledge possible in different disciplines. Synthetic a priori knowledge is possible. Suppose in mathematics we shall say 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. Before Immanuel Kant, Descartes, Spinoza and Leibniz, they were also rationalist philosophers. They were claiming that mathematical propositions are only universal and necessary, and they are not objective. That means mathematics and geometry, their statements, their contribution is only universal and necessary. They have nothing to do with this empirical world. Their knowledge is not objective. Immanuel Kant said, no, mathematics has also objective utility, objective value. How? How? Mathematical statements are not only a priori means universal and necessary, they are also synthetic. So Immanuel Kant, for the first time, therefore he made the revolution. For the first time, he claimed that mathematical statements can be synthetic, synthetic in spite of its universality and necessity. So that means mathematical statements are universal, necessary, and objective or synthetic. How? 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. So how it is universal? It is how it is necessary. Universal and necessary means there is no exception. All the time, or in all places, at all time, in all places, and for all human beings, 7 plus 5 must be 12. When we say must be, that is necessary. That is universal. But how it is synthetic? Synthetic statement is what? We have discussed that when the predicate speaks something new about the subject. Here 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. In this statement, 7 is not 12. 5 is not 12. So here 12 is a new information. 12 is a new information which is derived from the knowledge of 7 plus 5. Otherwise, no calculation is meaningful. Otherwise, there is no meaning. We should calculate what is our income, what is the expenditure, and what is our balance. So 7 is not 12, 5 is not 12. 7 plus 5, this meaning is totally different from the meaning of the 12. Suppose we know 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. This is a very easy task. Suppose there is a big sum, then we have to multiply that. What will be the result? That must be the result. Therefore, it is universal. But what will be the result? That is a new information, because you don't know. You will know that after calculation. In that sense, it is synthetic. Similarly, in physics, suppose every event must have a cause. Every event must have a cause. Because of this every, it is universal. Every event must have a cause. Because of the must, it is necessary. But meaning of event is not the meaning of the cause. Event and cause, they are not identical in meaning. They give the new information in. There are also other explanations about synthetic and a priori, but this is the basic idea how the matter of fact and the relation of ideas, or realism and idealism, both are synthesized in Immanuel Kant. And David Hume has made this distinction about relation of ideas and matter of fact. David Hume is claiming that matter of fact is there from which we are getting sensations, impressions. Yes, but there is the possibility of a mathematical knowledge. David Hume, many philosophers claim that David Hume is not strictly skeptic. David Hume is not a skeptic in the strict sense, only for one point, that he said mathematical knowledge is possible. So in mathematics, there is the relation of idea, that is the conceptual analysis, and that is a type of knowledge which can give us universal necessary ideas, and which conclusion can be certain. Otherwise, any idea that comes from the matter of facts, from impressions, from the empirical world, that is never certain. That is always doubtful. Even the knowledge of that is not certain, it is always probable. In that sense, David Hume is called skeptic. Okay. So, matter of the same thing, realism and idealism. Matter of fact means realism. Relation of ideas means idealism. So, mathematics belongs to idealism. David Hume says that knowledge is the mathematical knowledge can give us certainty, universality, and necessity. But these qualities, these qualifications of knowledge cannot be ascertained to the empirical knowledge, that is matter of fact. So but experience is the only source of knowledge, because there is no way. We have to depend upon experience. Experience is the only source of knowledge. This is one mistake of David Hume. And the second, and out of this mistake, his conclusion also became, his conclusion landed in skepticism because of this mistake, that the no knowledge derived from experience in the form of sensation and impressions can be certain. This is about David Hume. We shall discuss when other questions will come. And the fourth question is the Locke's theory of knowledge. Locke's theory of knowledge is based upon realism. Locke's theory of knowledge is not based upon idealism. So there are two groups. So epistemology is rooted in realism, metaphysics also is rooted in realism. So Locke is claiming that knowledge originates from experience. Immanuel Kant will say, no, knowledge does not originate from experience. Knowledge begins from experience. There is a difference between begins and originates. Anyway, Immanuel Kant, John Locke is claiming that every knowledge that is derived from human experience. So there is no innate idea, no preoccupied idea, no idea without experience. So mind is a tabula rasa, mind is an empty chamber. So there is no scope for idealism, there is only scope for realism. Okay, so whenever we have a knowledge claim, that knowledge claim is only about the empirical world, and that is based upon our experience. And he made a distinction between primary qualities and secondary qualities. The object I see that has two types of qualities, primary qualities and secondary qualities. Primary qualities are very much real to the object. The object is the source of the primary qualities, and the secondary qualities are not real. Secondary qualities are not real, they are subjective, but the primary qualities are objective. Okay, so this is the way John Locke started his epistemology. When other questions will come regarding the substance, what is the problem of substance, whether the object is a substance or not, we shall discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Das, for a detailed explanation on various questions. But one thing that I need to add to this, well, very nicely Professor Das has said, but as regarding synthetic a priori possibility of synthetic a priori knowledge, let me tell you one thing, how this knowledge is possible. Well, Das has said, Professor Das has said on this, has reflected on this. But one thing that would help all those who are attending this, you see, when we talk of experience of the external world, that means some new knowledge is coming to us. Okay. So that's how we can talk of the element of synthetic nature in knowledge with reference to Kant, because he is having a reference to the external world from which knowledge has to come. And if the knowledge is coming from the external world, so that is going to give you a new knowledge, number one. Number two, how that knowledge would be a priori. You see, Kant speaks of 12 a priori categories of understanding. Mind already, you see, we have 12 categories of understanding in the mind. Okay. Now, whatever sensory experiences that we get, okay, they are distributed among these 12 categories of understanding. Okay. The categories may be in the form of quality, or they may be in the form of quantity, or they may be in the form of relationship, or they may be in the form of modality. So these are the four kinds of categories, and each of these kinds has three different categories. So in total, 4 into 3, we have 12 categories, and whatever sense data, whatever sensations that we receive from the external world, that constitute a new knowledge. That's why we say that's synthetic. But at the same time, since this sense data is distributed among the 12 categories of understanding that is already there, that is already inbuilt in the mental structure, so the knowledge that you are getting is synthetic a priori, because whatever synthetic element you are getting from outside, that is distributed among these 12 categories of understanding, which are in fact a priori. And by again a synthetic activity of the mind, the 12 categories, whatever has been distributed in this into these 12 categories is again combined into to give a form of the object that you have perceived. So that's how this knowledge that you are getting is synthetic, because it is giving a new, you are getting a new knowledge. It is a priori because of the a priori conditioning of the mind, because of the presence of the categories. That's how synthetic a priori can be understood, and it can be taken. Now, well, because Professor Das has answered a lot of questions, let me take one question. It's on modes. Somebody has asked a question on modes. I'm taking this question. You see, if we move into the philosophy of Spinoza, he talks of substance, he talks of attributes, and he talks of modes. Now, most of the students, they confuse on what exactly are modes. Now, you see, well, when we talk of Spinoza, he talks of substance as having infinite number of attributes. Substance has infinite number of attributes. Out of the infinite number of attributes, we can only know two attributes. They are the attribute of thought, and the other is the attribute of extension. So remember, out of the infinite attributes of the substance, we can only know two attributes. Number one, attribute of thought, and number two, attribute of extension. Now the question as to what are modes. You see, modes are nothing but the modifications or the finite things of the world. Modes are nothing but the finite things of the world. Now, if they are material, suppose we are conscious beings, we are living beings. So we are living beings, we are conscious. So we are the modes of the attribute of thought. Okay. Now non-living things, all that is material, so they are the modes of the attribute of extension. So I repeat, modes are nothing but the modifications of either thought or extension. So since we are conscious beings, we are the modifications, or we are the modes of the conscious attribute of the substance or the thought. Okay, the attribute of thought. And all the finite things of the world, that means things that are not conscious, they constitute the modes of the attribute extension. So this is how we can take modes. So, Shashi Bhushan Rath sir has asked about cogito ergo sum, and I think Professor Das has answered cogito ergo sum during his explanation on various other questions. Now, one more question I would like to take. Well, I would even request Professor Das later on to talk on Descartes' idea of the world. Now, when we talk of, actually it's a question, very good question, how to explain world by making a reference to the philosophy of Descartes. Now you see, as Shashi Bhushan Rath sir has also asked about cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I exist. You see, in doubting everything, Descartes has tried to doubt everything, all that is external, everything. But he reached at a point where he cannot doubt that he is a doubting substance. So that's how he tried to establish, I think, therefore I am. Well, Professor Das too addressed on this. But when Descartes has bracketed out, when Descartes has started doubting everything, now how come that Descartes could establish the external world? So this is a big question to answer. One of the suggestions would be, now that we have certain sensations, I would like, because I may be partial to this count, I would like Professor Das to interact on this issue. The position that I take is, now that we have sensations, we have certain adventitious ideas, sensations, and if we talk of these adventitious or sensuous ideas without making a reference to the bodies that have caused these ideas, okay, and are also existing apart from us, then mostly maybe we would not be able to take a position so comfortable to explain anything at all. Okay, so even interaction would be impossible in that sense. So what I see is, if we are having sensory ideas, if we are having, say, adventitious ideas, and we cannot think of these ideas without being caused by the bodies that are lying external to us. So if we take this position, we have to accept the existence of the world. And this is how I feel Descartes has tried to prove the existence of the world. I would like to, because Descartes, Professor Das was working on, well, if he has something to add to this, how Descartes come to position of world, he may add to this. And one more thing, in Descartes also we see no attributes without matter. Well, that would also to some extent would help in understanding world with reference to Descartes. Okay, Professor Das.
Descartes' philosophy, I think that is a common sense philosophy, because Descartes has accepted body and mind and God, these three substances, two types of substances, that is absolute substance and subsidiary substance. Again, subsidiary substances are of two types, body and mind. That means Descartes is accepting body as reality, and its quality, that is extension, extension is real. And so far as the mind is concerned, thought is real. So thought and extension, these two are realities, and they are the real objects of our epistemology also, our knowledge also. So far as extension is the attribute, then no attribute without substance, as Dr. Rao said. It is also said by Descartes that if there is attribute, it cannot be there without the supporting substance. So extension is there means matter must be there. This is the common sense view. But Descartes has also given the teleological view, the theological view. The theological view is that he is describing this, God has created this world out of his veracity. Because God is good, God has created a beautiful world for his loving creatures. So why Descartes said so? Because at that time philosophers were not free from Christian theology. They actually, Indian philosophers are really free. They are great seers. Whatever they think, they say. They don't fear anybody, any authority. They never fear. Therefore, there are unorthodox philosophical systems in our Indian culture, and they are free. They are free not to believe in God, not to believe in soul. Buddha is free not to believe in soul. Okay, but that freedom is not there in the Western land. They have to satisfy the authority of a church, the authority of a Christian theology. So anyhow, they have to establish God, and they have to say that this creation is the beautiful creation of a God. So Descartes doubted everything. So when there is an universal doubt, everything is doubted. Myself is doubted. God is doubted. Jagat is doubted. Everything is doubted. But that doubt is not a skepticism. That doubt is a method to reach at the certainty. And the first certainty is that I exist. Why I exist? Because I am thinking. I am thinking is the first assumption, not assumption. That is the first certainty, that I am thinking. I am doubting. If I am doubting, then um, what I am doubting, that is not important. That I am doubt. I am answering even the question of Sasibhasan sir, including this question of the existence of a world. We shall address many questions at a time. Therefore, we can save time. Descartes started his philosophy by doubting everything. That let us doubt everything. Even everything is certain. Let us let us start doubting everything. Then we shall see what is the consequence. But what can we doubt? We can doubt that which can be doubted. That means we cannot doubt which cannot be doubted. This will be a logical impossibility. So, if we try to doubt, then at least we can doubt which can be doubted. So, Descartes started doubting everything. By doubting, he stopped somewhere. The one thing is there that where I fail to doubt. What is that? Now I fail to doubt that I am doubting. I am doubting everything that is possible. But how it is possible that I am doubting? That means the fact of doubting, the act of doubting cannot be doubted. So that act of doubting is the first certainty. So if there is doubting, then there must be thinking, because without thinking, that there will be no doubting. So if there is thinking, there must be a thinker. This is called the process of deduction. Deduction means the relation of ideas. The first question was relation. What is the relation of idea? Relation of ideas means, or deduction of ideas means, from one idea, logically, we deduce the second idea which cannot be challenged anywhere, anytime. Therefore, it is mathematical. Therefore, it is universal. So, what is the first idea? The first idea is, it is the fact that I am doubting. From that, the idea derived that doubting is certain. If doubting is certain, then there must be a thinking, act of thinking. Then from that the idea came, the thinker must be there. So I am that thinker who is thinking. So to think means to exist. That means I am thinking means I must exist. This is a mathematical deduction. This is from my intuition. For this, no philosophy is required, no university is required. A common man can say, I am thinking means I must exist. Because no attribute without substance. Attribute is there. What is the attribute? That I am thinking. If I am thinking, then I must exist as a thinker. So this is the famous declaration and the starting point of Descartes, that I think, therefore I exist. This is self-evident truth. Self-evident truth means there is no need of evidence, outer evidence, external evidence, scientific evidence to prove its truth. It is self-evident. That means it is proved by itself. I think, therefore I exist. Then he moved to the second possibility. If I exist, where from I came? Who is the cause of my existence? So he said that something, not God, something will be the cause of my existence, who is greater, who is more real than myself. This is the principle. This is the causal principle, that every event must have a cause. No, it is well known to all. Every event must have a cause. But the second causal principle is, the cause must be as much real as the effect, or the more real than the effect. When a mother is producing the child, the mother is more real, more mature in physically and mentally. Mother is more mature than the child. Therefore, the mother is creating the child. So the cause must be more real than the effect. So if I am the effect, then my cause must be more real than the effect, than this effect, than I. So he said that not my parents, not this external world, because they are as infinite as myself. So there must be one infinite being who is more real than my existence, and he is the creator of my existence. And from that he said that God must exist. This is causal argument. And he has also given ontological argument that I have the idea of God, where from that who is the cause of that idea, because the external world cannot be the cause of the idea of God, the innate idea. So God must be there, who is the cause of the idea of God, who is the cause of all innate ideas within me. By this way, Descartes tried to prove the existence of God. Then comes world. If I exist, if the infinite God exists, and what is the basic characteristics of God? Now, God is good, God is veracious, God is benevolent. So that benevolent God, that good God must have created a beautiful world, very harmonized world, very systematic world. That is Rita. In Upanishad it is called Rita. That Rita is not created by human being. How sun rises, how everything happens in nature, that is only created by Ishvara. That is only created by God. Okay, so God is veracious, and out of his veracity, he has created a beautiful world for the human, for all creatures, not only human beings. This is the theological supposition. The second one is the common sense supposition that Descartes has accepted thought, thought and extension as the basic attributes. Extension and thought. If extension, from the extension is the attribute, then there must be an external world, or the matter must be there, because without matter the extension cannot remain as the attribute. This is the Descartes position. Another question is there: what is the difference between Descartes and Locke? Sir,
Love.
Descartes and Locke regarding
Yes.
sir, regarding because that is the same question. What now I am telling regarding matter on primary and
Which
secondary qualities. Primary and secondary qualities. What is the difference between Descartes and Locke? Descartes is speaking about matter. Locke is speaking about matter. So what is the difference between these two philosophers? Descartes is accepting matter as a real. Matter is real, body is real, it is as real as mind. Therefore, Descartes is a dualist. John Locke is claiming matter that matter that it is there, which is a logical supposition. But here Descartes' position is a real supposition. It is reality. Yes, body is there. Yes, matter is there. And the qualities are also real. But John Locke says, I know not what. The qualities are there, and the substance must be there as a logical consequence, but substance does not exist as the object of a perception. But Descartes does not accept that. Descartes says the object is real. So this is the difference between the status of matter according to Descartes and John Locke. John Locke is saying, I know not what. Matter must be there, because without matter, how can there be qualities? Descartes says, no, there is no doubt. There is no doubt that matter. Descartes doubted everything, but he concluded that there is no doubt about my existence. There is no doubt about God's existence. There is no doubt about the existence of the world. These are the three fundamental certainties. I exist, God exists, and the Jagat exists. But John Locke says, I am doubtful about the existence of the matter, because my epistemology does not reach there. My epistemology reaches only the qualities, and that is primary qualities. And from the primary qualities, I infer logically there must be a matter as the substance. But Descartes says, There is no inference at all. I directly perceive the matter. This body is very much real, this mind is very much real, and there is an interaction between body and matter, body and mind, and this is common sense philosophy. So Descartes' philosophy is very much common sense, and all dualistic philosophy is common sense philosophy, because they accept both material reality and the materialism and idealism, or realism and idealism. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, beautifully answered. Well, I take another question. It is by Sachin Babu. Well, you talked of Descartes' doubt, but he makes a question how Descartes' doubt is different from Hume's doubt. Well, I would like to speak on this. Well, when you talk of Descartes and his doubt, actually, he was doubting everything. He was doubting everything in order to establish a certain knowledge. In order to establish a certain knowledge. Okay, but the problem that we find in Hume is, you see, Hume doubt is something of a sort of, we call Hume as a skeptic. Okay, so when we say him as a skeptic, we find in him two strands. You see, Hume talks of relationship among ideas. Now, when he talks of relationship among ideas, he does accept a possibility of mathematical knowledge. So, if we take Hume's relation among ideas or the relation of ideas, Hume is not a skeptic. Okay, because he somehow is convinced of the demonstrative knowledge possible by the combination of ideas. Hume was very much satisfied with that, because a sort of certainty can be attained in mathematical knowledge, in mathematical equations, in mathematical, say, expressions. But the problem that Hume comes across is when he makes an interaction with experience. When we experience, you see, even Hume raises a question on the law of uniformity of nature. You see, he says, whatever we experience, we develop a sort of habit. It is because of habit that we can say that now that it is night, it will again, will have a morning and the sun will rise. How it is possible? Because of experience and because of habit. And because of this experience, we develop a habit, and based on the habit, I say, well, the sun would rise in the morning tomorrow. So I'm going to say this, but Hume would say that, but you are never certain, you can never be sure, because the law of uniformity of nature is always at a risk, because it is a product of inductive knowledge, and you cannot always be certain that the sun will rise in the east tomorrow. Okay, so Hume has turned into a skeptic. He was not denying knowledge as it is, but he was trying to have a certain knowledge, a finality in knowledge. So he is saying the sort of certainty that mathematics assures, such sort of certainty cannot be thought of things that we get from the empirical world. That's why I tell you, even in science, whatever laws that we have, we can never say them to be final and binding. Okay, whatever science, whatever laws that we frame in science, that we get in science, they are never final. And there is always a scope for the modification or even a rejection of a well-established law, so that new laws can come in, new advancements can, okay, it is only then. It is only when we allow a scope for the laws to modify that we can have new knowledge. Otherwise, so Hume is much concerned about that. So that sort of certainty cannot be established through experience. So that's why we say Hume as a skeptic. And if we look at the principle of causation, so causation, when you talk of causation, as Professor Das was speaking on, every event must have a cause, and we cannot deny that. And the universal principle of causation asserts that we cannot think of an effect if that is causeless. So if there is an effect, that definitely must have a cause. But Hume is again critical of this. He is even questioning this causal principle. He is again questioning, we can never be certain even about causality. So this finality is missing. So there is a distinction of matters of fact and the relation of ideas. So Hume is comfortable with relation of ideas, because that is somehow giving a sort of mathematical demonstration and mathematical certainty. Hume is comfortable. There we don't find his skeptic position. It is only when he interacts with the matters of fact and he finds that no certainty can ever be established from the matters of fact. So there He turns into a skeptic and he doubts the possibility of a sort of certain knowledge that Descartes is talking of, a sort of certain knowledge that Descartes claims. That sort of certainty cannot be claimed from all the experience that we have. So that's the difference. Because when we talk of Descartes' doubt, he was doubting everything in order to establish a certain knowledge. You see, what problem was it with Descartes was he was saying over the years, over the centuries, many active minds have worked on philosophy, and till now we don't have any certain knowledge, like the sort of certainty that we have in mathematics. In mathematics, when you say a square plus b, say a plus b whole square is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab, or we say all the three angles of a triangle equals to 180 degree, or the equilateral triangle have all equal sides. This sort of certainty in arithmetic and geometry, that sort of certainty, an assertion, a statement is missing in the area of knowledge, I mean in the area of philosophy. So he was trying to arrive at such a statement which would be certain, which cannot be questioned, which would be self-evident. We don't require a proof to it. So finally he started doubting everything in order to establish a certain knowledge, which Professor Das was referring to. So in the process of doubting everything, he said he came to a position where he could arrive at a point where he said that at least I cannot doubt that I am doubting. At least I cannot doubt that I am doubting. So I should exist as a doubting substance. So I think, therefore I am. Like the way running is not possible without a runner, singing is not possible without a singer, a lecture is not possible without a lecturer. So doubting is not possible without a doubter. So if I am doubting, I should exist as a doubting substance. So doubt in Descartes was to establish a sort of certain knowledge. But the doubt, the skeptical position that we see in Hume is that not that he's refuting knowledge, but he's claiming, he's all moving for a claiming, a claim to have a certain knowledge, which he in fact doesn't find in experience. Because whatever generality that we arrive at, it is always at a risk, it is always subject to question. That's why we find this position in Hume, okay, and that leads us to say him in the skeptic, because there is no finality in knowledge, and but Hume is claiming for finality in knowledge. So that's how we can understand this. And one more question, it is for Professor Das. Please discuss innate ideas according to Descartes.
Yes, I went through the chat box, and again I shall address 3 to 4 questions together because they are related. So the questions which are already addressed, please skip them out. Otherwise, we can address all other questions. Anyway, um, Descartes' doubt and Hume's doubt, I shall just add something. If this question will be asked in the interview, very briefly, in one sentence, you can reply that Descartes' doubt is a rational doubt, and Hume's doubt is a skeptical doubt. If Hume can doubt and Descartes can doubt, from this it is proved that both a rationalist philosopher and an empiricist philosopher can doubt. That means the person who believes that experience is the source of knowledge, he can doubt, and the person who believes in origin is the source of knowledge or mind is the source of knowledge, he can also doubt. If both can doubt, the nature of doubting is different. So Descartes' doubt is called rational doubt. Rational doubt means we all have that type of doubt, rational doubt. When a police officer arrests some people, they are not proved as culprits. They are arrested on doubt. So after that, they may be released when their mistakes are not proved. So this is also a type of doubt. Descartes' doubt is meant for a rational conclusion, that I want, what is the intention? If you are doubting, then the question comes, what is your intention of doubting? What was Descartes' intention? Descartes' intention was to find the certainty, as Dr. Rao said. So this is the intention of a Descartes. But when Hume doubted, he is claiming that if my knowledge begins from experience, if my knowledge begins from experience, and that is the hard reality, without that everything is philosophy, everything is imagination, everything is story, everything is poetry, like that. But the hard reality is that I am acquainted with only sensations, perceptions, and these are changing, these are discrete, these are flowing. There is no connection at all. We are making connection, and we are building systems out of our habit and imagination. This is the general human psychology. So here Hume doubts that from this material, from this limitation, how can we speak of something substance, something God, something universal relation like causation? So here the doubt is skeptical. So his intention is, what is the intention of Hume? Hume's intention is to reject substance. Here Descartes' intention is to establish substance. That I am doubting to establish universality, to establish necessity, to establish substance. Hume's intention is to reject everything, anything that is called universal or necessity. Therefore, Hume's doubt is skeptical, but Descartes' doubt is rational. The other question that is asked, a very beautiful question and very intelligent question, and many students fail to answer this question. The question is: we have three entities: myself, God, and world. Which comes first in order? Myself comes first, or God comes first, or world comes first? In Descartes' philosophy, generally there is a confusion, because Descartes started from myself. First, I think, therefore I exist. That means Descartes started his philosophy from the existence of self. That means I exist. Then he proved the existence of a God. Then he proved the existence of a world. So what is the order? Order is I first, then God, then world. So this order is true from the epistemological point of view. From the knowledge point of view, I can't start with God, because knowledge begins with either from my experience or from my thought. Both empiricists and rationalist philosophers, if they go through the source of knowledge, they are bound to start with himself. I experience or I think. Therefore, epistemologically, I come first. Then God, then world. So the common point is I in bracket is first. In epistemologically, myself first, then God, then world. But ontologically, in reality, when Descartes is giving his conclusion, in the conclusion, what we found? God is first, then world, then myself. It is also said in the Upanishad, Brahman, Jagat, and Jiva. So God, world, and myself. This is in the order of existence, um, um, and in the order of knowledge, myself first, then God, then world. In the philosophy of Descartes, the second and another question was asked by somebody, that what is Copernican revolution in Immanuel Kant? Copernican revolution. Why I told about Kant's revolution, that Kant made a revolution by claiming synthetic a priori knowledge is possible. Therefore, he reconciled between science and metaphysics, physics and metaphysics. There was a great wall between scientific claim and metaphysical claim, or the claim between empiricism and rationalism. He bridged that gap, and he claimed that synthetic a priori knowledge is possible. What is Copernican revolution? This revolution is called Copernican revolution because Copernicus has made a revolution in astronomy. That before Copernicus, Ptolemy was claiming that Earth is the center, and everything, including sun, that is revolving around the Earth. Why he was claiming that? That was a long history. That is also rooted in theology. That man is the center of everything. So the Earth is the center of everything. From that psychology, from that theology, that statement was made. We shall not go to that debate. But this was the claim that Earth is the center. Man is the measure of everything. Man is the focus of everything. And the living earth, the earth where we live in, that must be the focus point. That must be the center. And sun and all other planets, they are revolving around the earth. And this was very much accepted by common people and religious people, and everybody was satisfied. But Copernicus for the first time made a revolution by claiming that sun is the center, and earth and other planets are revolving around the sun. When Copernicus said this, there was a great problem for him. He was criticized and he was threatened to death. Many problems came to him, and this is natural in a religion, and basically in religion this type of situations come. So this is this is the revolution made in astronomy, and the conflict between Ptolemy and Copernicus. The revolution is just the opposite. Earth is the center or the sun is the center. Earth is the center. This was the previous view, and sun is the center. This was the view of Copernicus. Similarly, Immanuel Kant made a revolution which was just opposite of the claim of the previous philosophers. What was the claim of the previous philosophers? Now, for any knowledge situation, mind must approach to the object for knowledge. Mind must approach. Without mind, um, no knowledge is possible. The external object, knowledge of the external object is possible. Immanuel Kant made a revolution that for in any knowledge situation, objects must conform. Objects must conform the a priori conditions of the mind. For example, they must be objects cannot be perceived without space and time. And if they are perceived through space and time, they cannot be understood without 12 categories of understanding. So here, as we are for any interview, there are some conditions. If you qualify this much, then you will be selected. So this condition is there. You have to approach these conditions. Otherwise, you can't be selected. And those who will confirm these conditions, they will get the post, and others will be rejected. And he is giving a very beautiful example that the net we have when we are going to fish in ocean. When we are going to fish in ocean, we are taking the help of a net which has holes of a particular size. So the size of the hole of that net will decide which type of a fish we can catch from the ocean. That means the small fish will be left out. We can't catch. Another example is, what is the spectacle? What is the color of your spectacle? If you are having a spectacle with yellow color, the world is yellow for you. Similarly, another example from the Upanishads, in which level of consciousness you are. If you are in the dream state, the world is just like that. If you are in the waking state, the world is just like that. If you are in the Turiya state, if you are in the pure consciousness state, then everything is Brahman for you. So your mind is your world. So this is the revolution which Kant made in philosophy. Exactly that is similar to the Copernicus revolution in astronomy. Therefore, Kant's revolution is compared with the revolution made by made by Copernicus in astronomy. Thank you. I shall come again.
Okay, so very nicely done. And to add to it, well, as we said, Copernicus was tortured for his position. It is just in 1 minute, let me tell you a real fact. You see, Galileo has tried to justify the Copernican stand. He said what Copernicus said was true, and for that also, Galileo was put behind the bars. Now you see, but Galileo was a very intelligent sort of guy, not a sort of a guy like Socrates. When Socrates tried to say something right and the state was not ready to listen to him, and the state gave a punishment to bring hemlock, Socrates simply accepted, took hemlock and accepted his death. But Galileo was a different sort of guy. He said, when he gave to the world base, Copernicus was right and the earlier Ptolemaic view was wrong. Galileo was put behind the bars. So he started laughing in the prison. Oh, how foolish I am to support Copernicus. Indeed, Copernicus was wrong. Rather, Ptolemy was right. All he did in order to get himself released from the prison. Now, once he got released from the prison, on a fine night, he escaped from the city and landed himself in an unidentifiable place. And then again he came to the public, asserting where his state laws do not extend there. He came to the public and said, well, it was Copernicus who was right in asserting that the sun is at the center around which the planets move. And the justification that Galileo gave was that if I tell the truth behind the bars, the state will punish me. And it will take centuries for the truth to prevail in this world. So, in order to escape that, in order that the truth is curtailed, truth is cut short, truth is suppressed, in order to do that, I have spoken it wrong, not just to escape from the prison. On escaping from the prison, he said to the world, he proved to the world that Copernicus was right through his experiments. Okay, and later, mathematically, Kepler proved that Copernicus was right, and indeed it is the Copernican position that we are holding this day too. So you see the mindset of Galileo. Okay, so sometimes even uttering a lie is a virtue. This was the topic of discussion yesterday, and this is an example to suggest to all. Sometimes speaking a lie is more virtuous than speaking the truth. Had Galileo would have confined himself to the truth in the bars, he should have been put to death the way Socrates was put to death. So this was in addition to what Professor Das has said. Now, one thing, well, I was disconnected for a while. My internet got unstable. I was disconnected and no questions I could find, but I could remember one question. It was on Aristotle's potentiality and actuality compared with Sankhya Satkaryavada. As the question raiser wanted to know, is there any similarity between the two? Now you see, Sankhya Satkaryavada says that whatever may be the effect has to pre-exist in the cause. Okay, oil has to be there in the oil seed in order that the oil is produced from the oil seed. That means the effect has to pre-exist in the cause in order that the effect is produced from the cause. Okay, so a cloth must pre-exist in the threads in order, the cotton yarn, in that the cloth is saved from the yarn. So this is the theory, Satkaryavada, that Sankhya advocates. Now the question was, can we draw a parallel between Sankhya's Satkaryavada with Aristotle's notion of potentiality and actuality? You see, Aristotle, while dealing with the substance, well, he talked of potentiality and actuality. Actuality means something that coming into being, to the best of my understanding. So motion, okay, it's an actuality. If something moves, it's an actuality. But potentiality is the inner force that drives. So potentiality is the inner force that drives. So what that is potential inside can only be actualized. So potential. So the way Sankhya sees the effect in the cause, the same way we can think of Aristotle's position that whatever actuality that we come across has a potentiality inside that. Had there been no potentiality in the substance, in the object, it would have never been actualized in the real state of affairs. So this is my submission to that question. Well, we can draw a very good parallel. Well, we can write, well, it is again debatable. Certain technical issues may come, but this can be a very good thing for comparison between Aristotle's potentiality and actuality and Sankhya's Satkaryavada. It would be a very nice thing to discuss. Okay. As I said, the questions I could not find, and the new questions I could find, the earlier questions are not there.
Yes, sir. Again, I addressed 3 to 4 questions which are there in the chat box. The question is why John Locke considers substance as unknown and unknowable. Yes, because John Locke is an empiricist. Okay, because John Locke is an empiricist, he is believing that knowledge begins with experience, and experience begins from the qualities. That is the difference. So the object is not perceived, only the qualities are perceived. Therefore, he is saying, from the epistemological point of view, we cannot claim that that substance is perceived. Substance is perceived. But from the logical point of view, we cannot deny that substance exists. Okay, for example, um, epistemologically you can't see your forefathers, but biologically your grandfather's nose standing on here. This nose is the nose of your grandfather or the grandfather's grandfather. So biologically you inherit the essence of your forefathers, and logically they must be there. Without them, how can you be here? It is impossible. Your present means your grandfather, though you have not seen, they must be there. Many things we don't see, but that does not mean they don't exist. So John Locke says, epistemologically it is denied that I know not what. It is there, but I can describe how it is, what it is. So in that sense, John Locke is claiming that it is not coming in direct perception. In that sense, it is unknown and unknowable. Okay. Then the another question is that what is Cartesian methodology? Cartesian methodology is mainly of 3 types. One is the universal doubt. The other is deductive method, and the third one is the intuitive method. Intuitive method is that every man has intuitive power. Every man has intuition. Intuition is free from experience. We gain knowledge from experience, and from our intuition we know many things. By intuition, we know the a priori knowledge that is independent of experience. By intuition, Descartes is claiming that that is self-evident. It does not need any external evidence. It is self-evident that from my intuition, I know that I think means I think means I must exist, because without my existence, how can I think? Many problems are solved only through our intuition. We don't need any teacher, any scripture. We don't ask. We don't need to ask all questions to our teachers or parents or to anybody else. Many questions are automatically solved by our self-reflection. So the possibility of self-reflection is there. So from the intuitive power, we know many truths. How did you know? I knew this from my intuition. Okay, so this is one method. So by intuition, we can claim something. Number 2, deduction. If one idea is proved, from that what can be logically deduced, that is deduction. Induction is something different. Deduction is that is called relation of ideas. These two things always confront. One is the matter of fact, the other is the relation of ideas. Relation of ideas means what is the relation between ideas. The another question is also there, correspondence theory of truth, that is about matter of fact, that is about realism. But when we are speaking about deduction, that is from one idea we can deduce the other idea. From my thinking, I can deduce the reality that I exist. From my existence, I can deduce another possibility that God exists. So this is called deductive method. And Descartes' methodology is also universal doubt. That universal doubt means without partiality, without any excuse, without any exception, without any bias, let us have a rational doubt to anybody. If something is stolen in your house, then you are free to doubt your servant and also your son and also your wife. If you are partial to your servant that he must have taken this, then your doubt is not a rational doubt. So Descartes' doubt is a rational doubt. Be a free doubter. No, don't be a touter. Be a free doubter. The rational doubter, rational thinker. And those who can doubt, they can go for any knowledge. They can acquire knowledge. They become inquisitive. They have the passion to know something. So these three are the Cartesian methodology. And the second, what is correspondence theory of truth? Yes, how if a statement is spoken, if a statement is there, how can we know the truth of that proposition? Science will say we shall not accept anything if that is not perceived, if that is not experienced, or if that is not experimented in the laboratory. Whatever is experimented, if that can be accepted as true. This is the view of science. Therefore, science does not admit the existence of God, existence of now science is claiming that is God, particles, all these things are there. But the basic claim of science that we believe in that truth which must correspond to the fact. That is the matter of fact. If any statement that does not correspond to the fact, then that is not true at all. So how can you determine the truth of a statement? That is through the correspondence. That is through the coherence theory of truth. Coherence means relation of ideas. Correspondence theory of truth means matter of fact. So suppose I say grass is green. Suppose I will say Jagannath temple is situated at Puri. All these statements must be verified or verifiable. If they are not verified in fact, then they cannot be accepted as true. So that means you should be very much careful to speak something, to give a statement. If you are speaking something, then that must have evidence. Therefore, suppose you go to the police station and make a complaint against anybody, they will have an inquiry. They will correspond to the fact, whether you are telling lie or you are telling truth. So how can they correspond? They will record your statement, they will go to the field and they will see there whether this statement corresponds to the fact or not. But in coherence theory of truth, there is no need of a field inquiry. That is a rational coherence. Oh, you said this, and that is said by other people. So many peoples are claiming one thing. So that is coherence. So let us accept this as true. So this is another method of testing truth. And still there is another method of testing truth, that is pragmatic theory of truth. Pragmatic theory of truth means whether you are telling lie or truth, that is not important. Whatever you are saying, that is useful or not. If you are speaking something useful, that is true. Suppose your father expired and you are informed from the hospital by your friend The friend will never say the truth that your father has is dead and you come soon. If you will say so, you can't reach that place. You will feel nervous. So he will say your father is serious, come soon. So your father is dead and your father is serious. There is big difference. So many, suppose I am hungry, but I have come to some guest's house. Even if I am hungry, I will never profess that yes, please give me food immediately. I am hungry because I am not an animal. I have my rationality. So telling lie is also virtue, as Dr. Rao said. So whether you are telling lie or telling truth, that is not important. Whether you are whatever you are saying, that is useful for the society or not. Suppose there is war between two countries. So no country will say that I don't have any weapon. My enemies are weak. Or I have, they will never profess their weakness. They will say, I am strong. I have killed 14,000 soldiers of Russian soldiers. I have done so and so, so and so. So these statements are practically useful because that will encourage the soldiers to fight, and that will demoralize the enemy. So what you are saying is not important. That what you are saying has usefulness or not, that is called pragmatic theory about truth. So there are mainly these three types of truth. One is correspondence theory of truth, that whatever you are saying that must correspond to the fact in the empirical world, that is called that is realism. Whatever you are saying, whether the same thing is said by others or there is a contradiction. If the same thing is said by others and there is a beautiful coherence, then it is idealism. It is coherence theory of truth. And the other is the very social, educative, very much pragmatic. That is what I said now. Telling truth or telling lie is not important. Telling usefulness, your statement must have usefulness. You don't speak useless truth is not good. Rather speak useful lie. Speak that lie which is useful for lokasangraha, which is useful for the society. If by your small lie we can save the life of a person, or we can save a society, then that lie is virtue. Okay. So when Dr. Rao was speaking about Galileo and Socrates, that Galileo told lie and he saved his life. This is that this is a personal psychology. But the man always confronts two psychology: I or we. If my life is so important, if I shall tell a lie, I shall be saved, my life will be saved, then I am free to tell lie in that context. If I am really taking the truth seriously, I am thinking about we, our society, our truth in the true sense, then no, I may die, but I shall never speak such a great lie. So that is Socrates. So Socrates, so this is that is personal, because this Socrates committed committed his death, and that is a personality. Many peoples are like that. They are very much committed. Immanuel Kant is that. Categorical imperative is that. But Bhagavad-Gita is speaking something different. You do something for Lokasangraha. So telling lie is not bad. If it is meant for lokasangraha, if it is meant for the welfare of the society. So there are different approaches, and that is very natural in philosophy. So choices are there. Be a free chooser, have your free mind. Don't be biased by any theory like theism, atheism, any ism. Be a free thinker and be a philosopher. A philosopher is not a follower. Don't follow anybody. Buddha's follower, Shankar's follower. No follower is a philosopher. A philosopher is a philosopher. Have your free mind, free thinking, and speak your own. Speak your own. Thank you. And yes. I am at, because you can't read. Because you
Now,
can't read.
now the
I,
questions are there. Let me
no,
tell
no.
one thing.
I am asking you. I am asking you one question. Please, you answer this question. Please highlight the refutation of innate ideas by John Locke. You please answer this question, then I will come back.
Okay. Well, to what Professor Das has said, let me tell you in 3 lines. When we talk of correspondence theory of truth, truth lies in one-to-one correspondence between the idea in the mind and the fact actually existing outside. So truth is that. Truth lies in one-to-one correspondence between the idea and the fact existing outside. Now, relating to coherence theory of truth, truth means truth lies in the consistency among the ideas. If the ideas fit to one another, then the truth exists there. So coherence among the ideas, the consistency among the ideas. So there the truth lies in coherence theory. If we come to pragmatic theory, truth is that which works. Truth is that which works. Okay, that which is useful is true. If I say this is a snake and that affects you, then even though that is a rope, and since that it has worked as a snake, so it is a snake, and truth is that there was a snake, in spite of the fact that there was no snake at all. So pragmatists will say, pragmatic theory of truth will say, truth is that which works. So, well, that was just a brief summary of a brief lining to what Professor Das has said. Well, regarding John Locke's refutation of innate ideas. You see, when we talk of innate ideas, the rationalists do accept that at the time of birth, there are certain innate ideas. They are innately present in the mind. But John Locke would come to say that mind at the time of birth is a clean slate. There is nothing. There is a clean slate. It's a blank sheet of paper. It is only when one passes through the stages of experience, certain imprints are put on that blank sheet. So what Locke is trying to say is, we do not actually have innate ideas, rather all knowledge comes from experience. In order to prove this point, he extends number of arguments. Had there been innate ideas already there in the mind, then a small child would have done, would have imagined, would have said a lot of things. Why he is not saying? So it's over a period of time that the child is developing, out of experience he is coming to know. Had there been ideas innately present in the mind, a small child would have started talking from the day of birth itself. You should have done everything right like a perfect human being, a right human being, an adult being. But that is not the case. Or say even an adult being, say the new natives, or somebody who is a mad person. If their ideas are innate, why he is behaving otherwise? Now, one more thing that comes is, though you say that there are innate ideas that are present in the mind, and they say one more thing: innate ideas are innately present, but we are unconscious of them. But Locke would say, how is that somebody has an idea, okay, an innate idea, and he is not conscious of his own idea? So that would be a contradiction to say that we have innate ideas, but we are not conscious of them. So these are various different arguments that still more arguments can be advanced. But basically, because Locke is an empiricist and he says knowledge begins with experience, we cannot think of innate ideas because mind at the time of birth is a tabula rasa. That means it's like a clean empty sheet of paper. Okay, it's a plain paper, and from experience only that impressions that we get on the mind. Okay, so this is how we can address, and various arguments can be advanced because of the paucity of time. This is the basic understanding why Locke has refuted innate ideas. Now again,
sir, another question for you. That is, if John Locke said that substance is unknown and unknowable, then in case of a God, he changed his voice and he said, that God is known and known and knowable. So how
Yes.
he made such compromise?
You see, as you said, even though there are branded philosophers, they take a stand because they're all committed to, at last, to theology somehow. Because the church was so dominating in the past, because there was no separation of anything, may it be science, okay, may it be politics, may it be true knowledge, nothing was separate from the church. So even though Locke was saying that matter as a substratum of qualities can never be perceived, what I perceive is the primary qualities, but matter as a substratum is never perceived. He is a man who has gone to that extent. What he says, what I can perceive is only the simple ideas born out of say the primary qualities, and matter is not perceived, but he comes on to assert the possibility of God only to go in line with, go in parity with the Christian church. Okay, in order to make them happy, he has to assert the position. Otherwise, speaking in a strict empiristic sense, the possibility of God is never possible. Because in an empirical stand, when Locke is committed that matter as a substratum is never perceived, how can God be perceived? Okay, so even though we say that God as a substratum, if you take all this world as the qualities and God as a substratum, that also, there also Locke will fail because he is denying for matter itself. As a substratum, nothing is perceived. So also, even though God is the substratum, but he cannot be perceived. Instead, he is taking the position of, or is supporting the existence of God only to pacify the theologians, nothing else. No philosophy involved, I think. Now, a brief, because we are already we are say running short of time. It is already 8:30. So last question, sir. Maybe it could be please do take. What is the difference between the substance? Because that is the area again. Okay, with reference to Indian philosophy and Western philosophy.
Yes, and, two questions are left, so I shall address these two questions. One question is asked by somebody that what is there any similarity between Immanuel Kant and Wittgenstein? Yes, there is a similarity because both the philosophers are critical about metaphysics. Immanuel Kant is claiming that the knowledge of metaphysics, the knowledge of noumena, is not possible by pure reason. Pure reason means the general reason, in which sense we use the word reason, that is pure reason. So through that pure reason, or through the categories of human mind understanding, we cannot speak of noumena or metaphysics. Exactly the same thing is said in the Upanishad that jiva or the or there is a beautiful saying that no category can be applied to Brahman. Therefore, Brahman is described as neti neti, not this, not this, not this, not this, because we can't apply any category. Because every category has its own limitation. The more you describe, the more you limit it. The more you will go on describing Brahman, the more you will limit the pervasiveness of Brahman. So Brahman is indescribable. Brahman is nirguna. Similarly, Immanuel Kant is claiming that so far as human epistemology is concerned, including both empiricism and rationalism, including both both experience and understanding, we are always landing in the phenomenal world. Our existence is phenomenal, our epistemology is phenomenal, so we can't go beyond the reach of a phenomenal world. So whatever is there beyond phenomenal world, that is unknown and unknowable. So this is the claim of Immanuel Kant. Similarly, Wittgenstein is saying that metaphysical questions take place when language goes on holiday. That means metaphysical problems are very much natural for human beings because human beings fail to know the proper use of language. So there are the approach is different. The approach of Immanuel Kant and Wittgenstein is different, but their intention is same, to eliminate metaphysics. That metaphysical questions are different types of questions. So when we are using the word Wittgenstein, when we speaking about the use of language, so when we speak of metaphysics, that is also a use of language. That should not be confused with the language that we use in scientific domain. Similarly, Immanuel Kant is saying, through pure reason you can't establish noumena. To understand noumena, to understand metaphysics, you have to apply practical reason. So, okay, similarly, William James is speaking that human beings have different types of experience. We should not confuse one experience with other experience. We have scientific experience. Scientific experience means the real experience, experience of the external world. Similarly, we have religious experience. So religious experience should not be confused with our realistic experience. ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ମନ୍ଦିର ଯାଇଥିଲି, ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ମତେ ବହୁତ ବଡ ବଡ ଆଖିରେ ଚାହିଁଲେ, ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ଆଖିରୁ ଲୁହ ବୋହିଗଲା, ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ମୋ ହାତରୁ ଭୋଗ ନେଇଗଲେ। ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ବାକ୍ୟ ଗୁଡିକ ଏଗୁଡାକ ମିନିଙ୍ଗଲେସ୍ ନୁହଁ। This is not meaningless. This has meaning in the religious frame. Okay, so religious experience has religious language, scientific experience has a scientific language. So we should not confuse one language with another. So this is the similarity between Wittgenstein and Immanuel Kant, and there are also other similarities, but this is the basic similarity. And when there is a question of regarding substance, this is a very beautiful question, and substance has become the focused point in both Indian and Western philosophy. Suppose we shall speak about Indian philosophy. In Vaisheshika system, substance is taken in the sense of the substratum. Substance is the substratum of qualities and actions. That means substance is that which holds the qualities and actions. The actions and qualities are held by a source that is called substance. This is the very fundamental meaning of substance, and exactly the same thing is also said in Western philosophy. When Descartes is speaking about substance, Spinoza is speaking about substance, there also we speak that substance is the substratum of the qualities. But when Immanuel Kant is speaking about substance, Immanuel Kant is saying that substance is only a category of understanding. Substance is a category of understanding, as causality is a category of understanding. So the meaning of substance is differently understood in different philosophical systems. Another meaning of substance is metaphysical. Substance is metaphysical. It is indescribable. Like Spinoza says. Spinoza says substance is infinite. It is one. It is the ultimate source. It is the source of all descriptions, all reality. That is the ultimate reality. And in Upanishad also, in that sense, we describe Brahman. So this is the metaphysical meaning of substance. But in Immanuel Kant, substance has become an epistemological category. Substance is one of the 12 categories of understanding. Okay, and in Vaisheshika system, substance is the substratum of qualities and actions. So if this question will be asked to you in the interview, if you speak this much, they will be impressed. Thank you. With this, all the questions are addressed by we three, though Dr. Anup Rai.
You too, not to you three.
No.
Because thank you, you and I said because you were explaining the problem so beautifully that you and Om explaining the problem so beautifully that I choose to slip into viewers gallery, or better to say learners gallery.
Oh,
You
sir,
will
sir, I said three because because we got inspiration from your silence. We got charged that Dr. Roy is there. So if we shall stumble anywhere, so he is there to support us. With
yeah,
that,
I was listening all through and I was getting stunned all through. Both you and Om, you beautifully explained. The students, the candidates are so lucky to get you to so that their future will be in a very in a good way, in a prosperous way when they get teachers like you. Thank you both Om and Orson. Now Om,
Thank you, thank you,
please.
thank you, Dr. Roy, for your presence, sir. Your presence matters a lot. So we are thinking that we will stumble and we will make an entry. By God's grace, things went on well, and maybe tomorrow you will be in an active role because maybe that is your area, Indian philosophy. So you will be asserting yourself very strongly. Okay, so we will be reserved tomorrow. Okay, so you would be the frontline warrior tomorrow. We are just waiting for you to intervene, but by God's grace, things went on well, and maybe tomorrow too we'll be having a very nice session, and a lot of energy comes when you are present, sir. So that is
sir,
again
sir,
appreciated.
sir, sir,
Sir.
I shall speak one thing to Dr. Roy before you give vote of thanks. So when really we speak, we see who are the audience. So you don't you did not speak anything, but when you are listening, so we are speaking to that standard. That we are speaking to Dr. Roy. Another gentleman is with us, Prakash Yaman. This is the name is reflected in the, and he has
Actually,
also,
let me tell you, Professor Das, Prakash Yamina Prakash is a relative to me, and he's very much interested in philosophy,
and
literature,
he's enjoying the
and of
session.
different interests. And he has joined philosophy family, and he has started attending our lectures. So we welcome to this him to this group, and I hope that he would be listening to the deliberations, and maybe the Saturday, maybe the Sunday webinars. That would be very much helpful, and we hope he would interact on that day. Okay, so thank you, sir. Well, it was a very good webinar that we had. I should thank Dr. Professor Pramod Das, Dr. Anup Rai, Prakash Yamina sir, and all the participants who raised beautiful questions to make this webinar so good, so nice. And I also would say that out of these questions and the responses that we had, certain things came for both the speakers, I think. Certain immediate things came to the mind, and that helps. And that's because there is no time that you refer to something and you come back with the answer. So it was all spontaneous, and that is possible only because you have very good questions. And the quality of the questions definitely would increase your standards too. And as Professor Das was saying, that the presence of Dr. Anup Rai also elevated us to a standard because we are talking to some people who are consciously listening to us. Any false step would be a problem to our side. So, with all things in mind, anyway, this webinar went on well. I thank everybody for making this webinar so successful. So, again, welcome all the participants tomorrow, and I also welcome Dr. Roy and Professor. I don't need to welcome Pramod Das. He is the man who welcomes everybody. Okay, and
Yes.
he is the man behind and man on the screen. And I should thanking everybody. Let us all move to Professor Das for declaring this meeting closed. So namaskar. Thank you everybody. And I should also thank Prakash Yamina for his presence. Well, sir, you are speaking something. You please unmute, sir. You are muted. You are muted. Just unmute. You want to say something, sir? Please unmute. Prakash sir, please unmute, sir. Unmute. Your voice is not coming to us. Just unmute. Press on the button, microphone button. Just press on it. Just press on it. Well, a technical issue. Anyway, over to Pramod Das sir for the final declaring this webinar closed.
So now we shall close this session, and We shall close only to begin the next session tomorrow. So this is an unending journey. Thank you everybody. We are grateful to all of you for having patient hearing. So
Thank you too. Thank you.
with this the meeting is declared
Promodo and
closed.
Om. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.